All right. Let's go. I see people.
Let's go. Welcome back.
Welcome. So I'm Isaac Valadez. We've got the one and only Cedric Waldberger and Bob, the Ordinals alchemist, on with us today.
Yeah, super happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
No problem.
It was really great to present at the community conference, and so revisiting the presentation, I think, is going to be really fun.
Awesome, great. Well, we're super excited to get started and dive into that. Before we do, however, I was just, actually, I got a random question for you. At the Bitcoin conference that followed, there's a bunch of people dressed as wizards, and I'm not really sure what was the deal with that. Do you know why a lot of Bitcoin maxis dressed as wizards, or what the deal is?
Yep. I dressed as a wizard. I had a wizard hat. I have my wizard wand right here, ready to go. So Udi is a Bitcoiner, top Bitcoiner. He started a movement called the Taproot Wizards. And the Taproot Wizards, there's a wizard school, and you have to kind of participate in all the challenges in order to get the ordinal, which is a Taproot Wizard, which is based on the Magic Internet Money meme from early Bitcoin days. And so there were a bunch of challenges. So one was you had to take a shower in a wizard costume. So people did all sorts of crazy things related to that. I ended up doing an ice bath. So dressed up as a wizard and did 3 minutes and 33 seconds at 33.3 degrees Fahrenheit in this just ice bath for my wizard plunge. So that's why people were dressed up as wizards, is because Udi and Eric were both doing a big debate against a couple Bitcoin maxis around ordinals at the conference. So fun times.
What a fascinating time to be alive, right?
DAO's taken over by dragons, wizards invading Bitcoin. This is great. Awesome. Well, before we dive into the presentation, is there anything you would like to highlight or discuss about stuff that's going on with Bionic or anything you're working on right now?
Yeah, I mean, we're probably about a month post-conference. We're still making really good progress on the Bionic side. All technical challenges have been resolved. We're doing end-to-end testing right now. So working on, just making sure everything lines up. We have a lot of moving pieces in Bionic. We have to make sure we have a good, secure wrapping layer so you can get your Bitcoin and your ordinals onto ICP. We have to make sure, front end is all good. We have to make sure our wallet kind of supports both the Bitcoin side and the ICP side. And so doing end-to-end testing right now, we're very excited. Wrapping ordinals and buying and selling on like a Bitcoin L2. I've been pitching ICP as a Bitcoin L2 to the Bitcoin community, and I think it makes a lot of sense. And so we're excited. We're getting closer. End-to-end testing means we're almost there. So
any release date you want to spoil?
I wish I had a release date to share. Still a couple annoying things to tackle on the technical side, and it's hard to give time estimates for those.
Got it. And then just one more question, because I know that was a follow-up question after your talk at the conference, right? Because you kind of embraced this idea that the internet computer is the platform that we're building on, but it's not necessarily the platform we're building for. What I mean by that is you use the technical abilities that the IC gives you to solve problems that you see. In the past, you were building the primary or the most popular NFT store on the IC. Now you're going into the Bitcoin world, but you're bringing the IC there. Just curious, what was the feedback on that? Because I know it was a bit controversial at the conference. Some people had questions after that. I think it's a great way to go, but just curious if there were any, if you got any feedback after your talk.
Yeah, I think this is a great question. Feedback was largely positive. And I think, there there are a couple paths for ICP to succeed. The first path, and the one that we've all been, trying to make happen over the last 2 years since mainnet launch, is maybe ICP is just going to be, the next Solana or the next Ethereum, and it'll get traction because of its unique technical capabilities. And we've seen some traction, but we haven't seen any kind of, we haven't seen any of the traction that like Solana has seen in terms of bumps in token price, or like mass amounts of devs or users coming in. So it's still a small ecosystem, and so I think my current view is, instead of this being the path forward, I think the likely path forward for ICP is, how can we make other chains better with ICP? How can we leverage the unique affordances of ICP to make Bitcoin better and to make Ethereum better? I know, there are other chain integrations coming down the line, and I think targeting a specific customer segment, building a solution specifically for that customer segment, and leveraging ICP in all of the ways that it's amazing, without having to like label everything based on the tech you're using. Let the tech fade into the background and just build good solutions for customers, I think, is likely the path forward for builders and entrepreneurs on ICP.
Yeah, it's an interesting way of looking at it. I think I share the vision that the IC is becoming more and more of a glue or backbone for other chains. It's the interconnector. We see the Bitcoin integration is live. The ETH integration is actively being worked on right now, and there's just so many cool things to do with that. Just one thing, like you said, we haven't seen the kind of like inflow of developers with the IC that we've seen with Solana. Now, I've never worked in the Solana ecosystem, but as an investor, I've interviewed a bunch of teams, and I think a stark difference that I think is important to take into account as well, not just the amount of developers that go into an ecosystem, but also the retention and why they go there. And one narrative that I see quite frequently, or have seen quite frequently in the past with Solana, is that developers were just given so much money to just spend half a year or a year in the ecosystem, but they never, at least a lot of the people that I spoke with, they never really liked the tech. And so while the numbers were much higher, I think with the IC, it's kind of the opposite. Like you gotta love the tech so much to be in this ecosystem, because there's not a ton of money, there's not a ton of like marketing or other hype. It's not the cool thing to do to be in the IC at the moment, or for the past 2 years. And for me, that's a more positive foundation for what's to come. And I think with the token price that you mentioned, it's also a function of like the phase when we launched, right? Like Solana had this perfect launch timeline, perfectly aligned with like the bull market of 2020, 2021. Whereas the IC just came at the end of that.
Yeah, good points. Agreed.
And so coming out of that, why don't you just introduce your talk in kind of a high level, just for those not familiar with it.
Yeah, so for those that don't know, I'm Bob Bodily, co-founder and CEO at Bioniq. Bioniq is building an Ordinals marketplace, and we're building it on a Bitcoin sidechain, or Bitcoin L2, called ICP. And we're getting really close with Bioniq. And so as part of this talk, I talked about how we can leverage ICP to make Bitcoin better. So I talked a little bit about Bitcoin, a little bit about ICP, and how they're integrated together, and then why it's like peanut butter and jelly, or chocolate and peanut butter, or whatever your favorite food combo is. So yeah.
And you mentioned that's your current project. Like a lot of people will also associate you with Tonic or with Entrepot, the NFT marketplace, right? What other projects are you guys working on at the moment, or are you fully focused on Bioniq?
Yeah, so we are fully focused on Bioniq, but the underlying tech that we use between the Bioniq market and Tonic market is pretty much the same. And so because of that, we're kind of running them in tandem. So for those on the Bitcoin side that don't know, we have the largest NFT marketplace on ICP. and it's called Tonic Market. So we have Tonic on the ICP side, Bionic on the Bitcoin side. Bionic is a separate marketplace, and the native currency is just Bitcoin. And so, really trying to build like a native feeling Ordinals marketplace with Bionic.
Great.
Awesome. Great. Well, let's dive right into your talk. Can't wait to share it. First time live on the internet. Before we do, I just wanted to bring up that we're giving a giveaway 5 ICP to someone commenting on YouTube. So when you comment on YouTube, we're able to bring the comment up. We're going to have a Q&A following this recording of his session at the conference this past May. And we're going to be picking somebody to win 5 ICP. So definitely, like while the recording's going on, put your questions in there on YouTube, and we'll be bringing up a few of those to chat through. So thanks everyone for joining, and let's go ahead and start watching Bitcoin and Ordinals on ICP by Bob Bodily.
I think I'm going to pull up our first speaker is on deck. So please welcome to the stage Dr. Bob Bodily, PhD from Tonic Labs.
Hello, everyone. Hey. I'm going to be talking about Bitcoin today. We're here at the Bitcoin Builders Conference, right? Did I mix up my talks? I am going to be talking about Bitcoin today. Who here owns Bitcoin? Who said boo? Come on. Okay, what about Ethereum? Who owns ETH? Another boo. Come on, guys. Okay, what about ICP? ICP, yeah, here we go. All right. So if anyone has been following me on Twitter, which I think many of you have, I haven't been tweeting at all about ICP lately. And that is strategic. A lot of people have been saying, have you abandoned the IC? Have you... are you even building on the IC anymore? And the answer is yes. We care more about ICP than ever, but we have, a strategic vision of how we're going to grow ICP together. And right now, that's through Bitcoin. So let's learn a little bit about Bitcoin today. Who's seen this chart before? This is mempool.space. If you see the red and you're trying to get a Bitcoin transaction through, you're going to feel very, very sad because this is 155 sats per VB to get through the mempool. So for context, if you were trying to do a normal Bitcoin transaction and it's just a simple one input, one output transaction, it's going to cost you around 333 sats at like 3 sats per VB. So this is about 50 times that. So instead of paying 300 sats, you're going to pay, 150,000 sats, which starts to get expensive. I mean, these are like the gas fees of Ethereum. If you haven't been following Bitcoin NFTs lately, the gas fees have been astronomically large to the point where some of the network fees paid by users has been higher than the block reward. Which is pretty impressive if you've been following Bitcoin. I mean, last year we had really, really low fees almost all year. So Bitcoin has something called probabilistic finality, meaning that we're spoiled on ICP because we have deterministic finality. You make a request, like an update call, and you get a response, and then you're done. Consensus already happened within a subnet, and you know that you have final state. On Bitcoin, it doesn't work that way. You pay fees to get included in a block, and once your transaction is in a block, then you wait, and then if the miner decides to include your transaction, then it gets mined into a block. Even after it's been mined into a block, you don't know that it's final for sure, because another miner could find another block that could compete with this. It's all about who has the longest chain in Bitcoin. So a transaction might take 10 minutes, or it might take 20 minutes. It could take as much as an hour or an hour and a half until you get full finality. Probabilistic finality. And here's an example of a block. You'll see every square over here on this chart is an individual transaction. The red ones are paying more fees, and the orange and yellow ones are paying fewer fees. And then the size of each square is the size of a transaction. So for Bitcoin, you're going to be paying based on the amount of space that you're putting on Bitcoin. Once you submit a transaction to Bitcoin, then transactions sit in the mempool, and they could sit in the mempool for a very long time, depending on the fees that you associated with your individual transaction. And in a lot of ways, Bitcoin is already non-fungible because the balances are based on something called UTXOs, which are unspent transaction outputs. So the way that Bitcoin works is individual Satoshis are mined, and then those are included as inputs and outputs in a transaction. And that UTXO model, you can essentially track Bitcoin across transactions using UTXOs. Let's talk a little bit about ordinals now. Who knows what ordinals are in the context of Bitcoin NFTs? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, pretty good. Who owns an ordinal? Anyone own an ordinal? We got one in the back, except that's Max, it doesn't count. Anyone else? Anyone? Oh, nobody. Oh, what a travesty. We're going to change this with the launch of Bionic. Just you wait. Okay, so ordinals. Let's talk a little bit about ordinal theory. So there's a guy named Casey Rodarmore, and Casey Rodarmore created something called ordinal theory. Ordinal theory means that when a single Bitcoin is broken up into 100 million Satoshis. So one Bitcoin, 100 million Satoshis. Total supply of Bitcoin is 21 million, so total supply of Satoshis is 2.1 quadrillion-ish. It's a little bit less than that. And ordinal theory says that every time a sat is mined, you're going to give it a number, starting at 0, going to 2.1 quadrillion. And then you can follow this individual Satoshi across UTXOs, and you can actually track which individual Satoshi numbers you own. And this is ordinal theory. The next component of ordinals is inscriptions. Inscriptions is you take an image and you put the image in an encoded form in a Bitcoin transaction itself. So this is storing the images 100% on chain, which is something that I'm sure all of you have been familiar with because that's one of the things we tout on ICP is images are 100% on chain. Bitcoin has a unique, Ordinals has brought this interesting dynamic to Bitcoin where it's pay once, store forever. Kind of storage. So you pay once to have the image included in a Bitcoin transaction, and then it's stored on Bitcoin forever. Air quotes forever, because nothing is forever, but for as long as Bitcoin is around. And you don't prune the transactions, but we don't have to get into pruning. So far we've talked about ordinals, ordinal theory, tracking individual Satoshis, and then inscriptions. You actually take an image and you store it in the input of a Bitcoin transaction. The third piece to ordinals is you actually connect that inscription to an individual Satoshi. So this is Bitcoin NFTs. This is how people are doing, how people are inscribing NFTs on Bitcoin. Does that make sense? Give me if you understand, hand really high in the air. We got a really smart group of technical people here. Excellent. So this is ordinals, and people really like it. There's been crazy traction on ordinals so far. This is a Dune dashboard. There's been over $100 million in volume on ordinals marketplaces over the last 3 months. Ordinals started January 20th, around January 20th, and marketplaces didn't start coming on until February. And so this is February, March, April, May. So almost 3.5 months. There's been 175,000 trades almost and over 50,000 unique users, which is crazy, wild traction. The key, I think from a trading perspective, the key idea is one, look at the Ethereum NFT market and look at the total ETH market cap, then look at the total Bitcoin market cap, and it's easy to extrapolate, Bitcoin NFTs are going to be massive. And then you also have the key component of all images are stored on chain, on the actual Bitcoin blockchain. So these are kind of two of the main reasons why people are diving into ordinals. Here's another chart from the Dune dashboard. You can see marketplace activity started maybe February 15th. There was a little bit of activity, then kind of an initial explosion on markets like Ordinals Market, OrdSwap, Ordinals Wallet. Early May, you can see that volume spiked considerably. This was the meme coin craze on Bitcoin. Yes, you heard that right. People are minting meme coins on Bitcoin. I didn't hear any laughing. Meme coins on Bitcoin. It is as crazy as it sounds. So let's dive into that a little bit. Ordinals, if you want to characterize it, it's not a blockchain, it's a meta protocol on top of Bitcoin. A meta protocol takes advantage of a blockchain like Bitcoin, and you get all of the messages for this particular meta protocol like Ordinals gets the security and the consensus layer of Bitcoin. What you don't get is meta protocols don't have the crypto economic security of the underlying chain. So what that means is there's an incentive to run a Bitcoin node. Honest participant in the network will get compensated on Bitcoin. On Bitcoin or on Ethereum. For meta protocols, you just have node software, and that node software is just running on top of a Bitcoin node, but there's no incentive structure to get someone to run that. So it's a centralizing force for meta protocols. So meta protocols almost, in almost all cases, meta protocols are not as decentralized as the underlying base chain. So what you're seeing here is an example of someone storing a JSON object directly on Bitcoin using a kind of meta protocol of sorts. The top one is you can see the P, that's protocol. SNS is not our SNS. This is just a name service. It's the SATS name service. The op is just the operation, which is register, and the name is the name, bob.sats. Unfortunately, this was not me. Someone else stole my sats name. I know, it's a travesty. The one below it you'll see is a BRC20 token. You'll see it's a deploy, and the tick is Ordi. Ordi was the very first BRC20 token to be deployed. The max is the total supply, that's 21 million, same as Bitcoin, and the limit is 1,000. That means for every inscription that you mint, you can inscribe 1,000 tokens at a time. So this is how you deploy a token on Bitcoin right now. You just take a JSON that looks just like this, and you go to some inscription tool, and you just paste the JSON in, change the ticker, change the max supply and the limit, and you're good to go. You click inscribe, you hope someone doesn't front run you. People can watch the mempool and see what people are inscribing, and they can inscribe with higher fees and steal your token ticker if they wanted to. So not ideal in a lot of ways, but this is a fungible token on Bitcoin. BRC20s have had tons of traction. Ordi has been listed on a couple centralized exchanges, and there has been massive traction. As you saw here, you can see the yellow bars. This is all BRC20 traction and volume from meme coins on Bitcoin. So it's a crazy, wild new world on Bitcoin. There's more experimentation on Bitcoin in the last 3 months than I've seen in the last 2 or 3 years. There are builders, there are big wallets, there are traders, there are people building wallet solutions and marketplaces. It's kind of like the Renaissance on Bitcoin. Like people can actually build an experiment on Bitcoin again. Jesse, how am I doing on time? Okay. So now let's chat about what ICP brings to the table and why we're building Bioniq. So first, we have the direct BTC integration via ECDSA. So in this case, you can actually control Bitcoin via ICP smart contracts. This means you can have an ICP smart contract, and then using ECDSA, you can actually sign regular Bitcoin transactions that you can then broadcast to the Bitcoin mempool that can then be included directly in Bitcoin. This is really interesting because you can add a whole bunch of smart contracts on ICP and then interact directly with Bitcoin. You can't do taproot transactions on ICP yet. Taproot transactions require something called Schnorr signatures, which if you saw Max from Bitfinity just put a forum post up, and in that forum post outlined how we could maybe support Schnorr signatures to do taproot transactions directly from a canister on ICP, which would be really interesting. Right now, we can do normal Bitcoin transactions using ECDSA. The next component of the Bitcoin integration is CKBTC. As of a couple days ago, we had 72 CKBTC, total supply so far. CKBTC is another layer in the Bitcoin integration where now you can take BTC, lock it up in an ICP smart contract, and then on the other side, it will mint to you an ICRC1 CKBTC token. ICRC1 is the fungible token standard. And CKBTC is really interesting because now you get Bitcoin transactions at the speed and cost of the internet computer rather than the speed and cost of Bitcoin. So instead of slow and expensive, you get really fast and really inexpensive. I think the current fee is 10 Satoshis as your CKBTC transfer fee, which is very, very low. 30x lower fees at least, depending on mempool. The next thing that we're doing at Tonic is we're building, it's not really CK Ordinals, but it's basically CK Ordinals. It's a wrapped Ordinals solution on ICP. So we have a smart contract canister, and you can take an Ordinal and you can send it to this canister. It generates a new ECDSA address for every Ordinal, and then it mints you an ICP NFT on the other side. So by using wrapped Ordinals and CKBTC, we can essentially trade Bitcoin NFTs on ICP using a native ICP token, CKBTC, and a native ICP NFT, which is the wrapped Ordinals. So this is why we're calling Bioniq the world's fastest Ordinals marketplace. And I think only ICP can do this right now. You really need a really good token. So you need some kind of wrapped alternative for Bitcoin. And on ICP, we have CKBTC. And then you need some kind of wrapped ordinal solution, which no one really has a good solution for this yet. There is Emblem Vault. Emblem Vault is centralized kind of wrapper for lots of different kinds of things. So this is our main value proposition for Bioniq. I think the internet computer is uniquely positioned as a blockchain to be able to offer the fastest ordinals marketplace in the world. And I don't know who is going to take this title from us because of what we can do on ICP. So my call to all the IC builders in the audience is I'm starting to see some ecosystems develop in the ordinal space. The ordinal space is really interesting because you haven't really had that many builders on Bitcoin recently. There hasn't been that much to do. So Ordinals has opened up a ton of experimentation where now you have people from Ethereum coming onto Bitcoin, you have traders from Ethereum coming to Bitcoin, you have blockchains like Stacks that have positioned themselves as a smart contract layer for Bitcoin that are coming in. You have people from ICP and other places starting to build Ordinals, and Ordinals has really become this kind of melting pot of builders and traders, and it's been really interesting to watch. And as I've been watching this, there seem to be some synergies within ecosystems. So Ethereum has OpenSea and Emblem Vault, as well as Ordinals Market, people trying to just wrap everything back to Ethereum. You have people on the stack side, like Gamma, Hero, Xverse, and others that are trying to leverage SBTC. SBTC is going to come out later this year. SBTC is the analog to CKBTC, but in the Stacks ecosystem with their Nakamoto release coming later this year. And then people from the Bitcoin side trying to keep everything on Bitcoin, like Ordinals Wallet, Magic Eden, Unisat, and then builders on ICP. I've talked to people from AstroX, talked to people from Funded about Plug, talked to a few others in the ecosystem, but it really feels like there's ecosystem synergy in the ordinal space. And so my call to all of you is, talk to me, see how you can integrate this wrapped ordinals and CKBTC into your applications. Our goal here is we want to grow ICP for everyone. And the way that we are starting to do this is let's do it by building amazing tooling for people trading ordinals and people that want to trade in the Bitcoin ecosystem. So let's talk a little bit about how we grow ICP for builders. And this is going to explain our particular marketing approach, our branding approach, our growth strategy, and we'll explain a lot of the reasons why it seems like we've pivoted completely over to be kind of a Bitcoin company. So the first idea is pick a customer segment outside of the ICP ecosystem. I think building for the people in the ICP ecosystem is great, but once you have all of the users inside of the ICP ecosystem, then what do? You have to either go to Web 2, or you have to go cross chain to grow ICP to get additional people into the ecosystem. And so if you look at all internet users, and you look at all crypto users, and you look at current ICP users, these circles are just estimates. They're not actually to scale. I don't know that we are 1/6 of all crypto users, but the ICP bubble was going to be too small, and you wouldn't be able to see it. So I think that picking a customer segment outside of the ICP ecosystem, this is what we're doing with Bioniq. We are specifically building Bioniq to cater to Bitcoin maxis, Bitcoiners, Bitcoin NFT lovers, Ordinal lovers, Ethereum people, Ethereum traders. And the way that we're doing this is we aren't even having ICP as a token on Bioniq. Bioniq is going to be a CKBTC-based marketplace. So CKBTC will be the main currency and wrapped ordinals, and you won't be able to trade native ICP NFTs or use ICP on Bioniq. This is a strategic choice on our part because we want to make ordinals people feel at home. We want them to understand that you don't need any token to do wrapping on ICP. I think ICP can have the greatest user experience for wrap tokens in all of crypto because of the reverse gas model. You don't have to own ICP in order to wrap Bitcoin. You can just come in natively with Bitcoin and just wrap it. And so that's everything that we're building into Bioniq. It's going to be a really, really seamless wrapping process. This is me channeling my inner Jesse. This is the only memeable aspect of my presentation. Sorry if it's been dry and technical. But I think we really need to let the tech fade into the background and build solutions to solve real problems. So instead of leading with the chain that you're building on, or leading with the interesting ICP tech that you're using, I think letting all of that fade into the background and then just talk about the solution that you're building for your users. So in our case, if you've noticed on Twitter, I completely revamped my Twitter profile, and I barely mention ICP at all. I've gotten a number of comments from people saying like, "Oh no, Bob, took ICP off his Twitter profile," or why am I not talking about ICP? And it's been a strategic decision to try to get integrated into the Bitcoin community. I really want to be seen as like a technical savvy builder on Bitcoin so that I can get people to trust me when I say, oh, we're building on ICP, and here are the reasons why ICP is a really great Bitcoin sidechain. And as I've been pitching ICP to Bitcoiners, it's been a really easy conversation. I tell them, hey, there's, how Stacks is a, sidechain to Bitcoin. ICP is another sidechain to Bitcoin, and here are all the really cool things you can do. And I very rarely get pushback when I use this kind of terminology. It might feel weird to a lot of you that I'm pitching ICP as a Bitcoin sidechain, like first and foremost. Like we all think ICP is going to be much bigger than just a Bitcoin sidechain, but it's a really easy way to get in and just start talking about what ICP is and why it's really, really awesome. And so completely revamped my Twitter profile, and if you've seen my tweets, which I'm sure many of you have, I very rarely talk about ICP. It's probably like 95% Bitcoin and 5% ICP. But because of this kind of strategy, I got invited to be on the first Ordinals conference is coming up in 2 days. It's on Thursday. It's just over on Miami Beach. And I got invited to be on the Layer 2 sidechain meta protocol panel. There are 3 people that they picked, and I was one of those people because I've just been like blasting out really interesting content on these crazy Bitcoin meta protocols. I say crazy because some of them are very crazy. Some of them are more legitimate. But this has been our strategy. Like, how can we target the Bitcoin community? How can we make them feel at home? How can we get them to trust us in order to then talk to them about really, really good technical solutions? And so this is kind of our core, marketing, branding, growth strategy with Bioniq. We want to be friends with, and we want to integrate the Bitcoin community into Bioniq in a way that it just feels like the best Bitcoin marketplace to them. And then we can start to talk about the ICP tech and how ICP powers Bioniq, and why, how Bioniq is able to do transactions as fast as it does, or as inexpensively as it does. So I think, this is my main point today. Take Bitcoin, build for Bitcoin, add ICP, and I think that we'll be able to grow the internet computer the most by targeting users outside of the ecosystem, building solutions that appeal to them, and then start introducing ICP tech and all of the awesome things you can do with ICP. Thank you.
All right.
1 second.
There you go.
Here we go. Good stuff. Thanks so much again for your talk, Bob. Great insights. Maybe first question that I noted down right towards the end of this talk. You said there's some insane things that have happened and some more sane things in that space that happened leading up to the conference. Fast forward 6 weeks now. Since the conference, what's happened in the space since then? How active is the Bitcoin Ordinals community, and what are kind of the newer developments?
Yeah, we had probably 100 million in volume at the conference, and now there's like 200 million in volume. So double the volume, double the number of traders, probably double the number of people in the Ordinals ecosystem. It's continuing to grow. People are doing fungible tokens on Bitcoin. People are starting to do new things like raffles with these BRC20s, or making people pay BRC20 in order to do things. So more practical, or like more useful ways of leveraging these meta protocols. We've had more centralized exchanges get on board. We have additional protocols that people are starting up. So there's metaverse meta protocols that people are thinking about now. And in addition to fungible tokens, there's other kinds of like generative standards for creating inscriptions on Bitcoin. And so, yeah, I think it's just more of everything.
Awesome. Great to hear. We've got one question from Jeremy here. Maybe this is not very Ordinal specific, but he's just asking about anybody working on Bitcoin DeFi yet on ICP. So maybe if you've heard of anything, Bob, or I know Cedric, you've maybe heard of a few too.
Yeah, so it depends on what you mean by Bitcoin DeFi. If you mean DeFi with like Bitcoin itself, like CKBTC, I know there are multiple platforms that have integrated CKBTC, and you can leverage CKBTC in all of the ways that you can do normal DeFi. So swap it, or I don't know exactly the full extent of DeFi features that have been implemented so far, but like IC Lighthouse, for example, is a fairly fully featured platform doing stuff with CKBTC. If by Bitcoin DeFi you mean like fungible tokens on Bitcoin, which is maybe not what you're referring to, but there are some people starting to think about how could we take the BRC20s and wrap them onto ICP, and then enable you to do DeFi on ICP with those fungible tokens.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that second category. The first one, I agree with you. There's lots of things coming out, but of course it always takes a bit of time to build, and we got to remember CKBTC only went live a few months ago. But there, in addition to the trading, the exchange, the trading and exchanging it, there's also borrowing and lending that I think a few teams are working on.
Yep.
Great. And those listening, don't forget to ask your questions on YouTube so we can pull them on up. We'll be giving away 5 ICP to a question asked on YouTube. And, as those come in, I just wanted to ask too, for those who are interested in what you're doing with Bioniq, what steps should they take next to kind of get involved and stay in the loop?
Yeah, definitely follow me on Twitter at Bob Bodily, and follow Bioniq as well at Bionic Market. And we'll be posting updates as we continue to make progress. And yeah, that's probably the best way to stay up to date. If people have questions, they're welcome to DM me. I'm fairly responsive to DMs on Twitter, so just find me at Bob Bodily. You can DM me. You can ask me questions about Bioniq if you're interested in a collaboration or building some BTC tech on ICP. Definitely hit me up, and we have some tech that we can provide you with, kind of like a foundational tech layer that'll make it a lot easier to build. So I know for like hackathons or smaller projects, you don't really want to have to spin up a full like Ordinals backend service, and so we have everything that you can just come in and leverage. So definitely DM me if you're interested in doing that.
One
Awesome.
quick one. I know during the talk you shared a few graphs from Dune, and I think it was this dashboard here that shows like daily volumes or weekly volumes maybe. There's a few different marketplaces. So this one here is volume by marketplace, and
Yep.
It seems like within the last few weeks, OKX, which is probably the one exchange that's also a legacy exchange, meaning it's a centralized crypto exchange, so it's been around for a few years. They're gaining some traction. How is Bioniq going to be different? How is Bioniq going to capture a large market share?
Yeah, so if you look at this list, almost all of them are leveraging PSBTs, partially signed Bitcoin transactions, as the swapping mechanism. So it's a native to Bitcoin marketplace. I would say OrdSwap, Ordinals Wallet, OpenOrdX, Gamma, Magic Eden, Unisat, OKX. Those 7 are all leveraging PSBTs. Ordinals Market is the one that perhaps isn't. They leverage Emblem Vault. So you can wrap your Ordinals with Emblem Vault, and then you can list those vaults on OpenSea or on Ordinals Market. So that's kind of an Ethereum ecosystem project. Because these marketplaces are built 100% on Bitcoin, you have the speed and cost of Bitcoin for all marketplace transactions, which results in kind of an annoying user experience at times where you have to wait 30 to 90 minutes for a transaction to go through. Or gas fees or network fees, as they're called on Bitcoin, could be really, really high, and then your transaction is going to cost a lot. So you have variable network fees. And so our strategy with Bioniq is, let's build on a Bitcoin sidechain, ICP, and let's take advantage of the speed and the cost of ICP rather than of Bitcoin. So to buy an ordinal on Bioniq will be very, very fast all the time, no matter the traffic. And the cost to actually send Bitcoin is just 10 sats as opposed to hundreds or thousands of sats on Bitcoin itself. So we'll be the first dedicated ordinals marketplace building on a Bitcoin L2 or Bitcoin sidechain, depending on what you want to call it. So that's kind of our differentiator.
And apart from the technical reasons, like how do you think about making people aware? Because all these marketplaces ultimately, they also compete for attention, right? What's been, and I'm asking this because I think that's a strategy or like an area where a lot of projects in the IC ecosystem also face headwinds. How do we get out there? How do we make a broader Web3 or Bitcoin community or even a Web2 community aware of what we're doing and how we're so much better than the legacy solutions? What are things that have worked for you, and what are you and the team currently working on in order to reach more people?
Yeah, I'll talk about it partly on the product side and partly on the marketing side. On the product side, I think it's really about feature differentiation that users care about. So how are you different, and how are you building better solutions for users, for creators, etc.? And so we have a bunch of areas where we're pushing in that direction. And that's just like positioning ourselves from like a product placement, from a narrative perspective, so that our users kind of understand what we're doing. From a marketing perspective, I think you really just have to go and join the communities that you want to attract. And so for our marketing strategy, like that's what we've been doing. Like I've been very, very deep in the ordinal space since like February, early February. That's a change in the way that I talk to people. It's a change in my Twitter content. It's a change in the way that we position Bioniq. It informs our product. Like instead of just adding in Bitcoin as another chain to our existing marketplace, we decided to create a brand new marketplace. And that's because we wanted it to be like a native Bitcoin marketplace. And so, the customers that you're trying to attract then informs your marketing and product decisions.
Great. And
So
kind
it's-
of, yeah, so yeah, and I kind of in line with that. Like I've noticed that whenever I'm on Twitter, I see that you're always like speaking and different um, Twitter space AMAs for Ordinals. I know you've been using those to get the word out. And, when you're in those, like how has the Bitcoin ecosystem been generally responding to what you're doing with Bioniq?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of ways that ICP can make Bitcoin better. So if you think about like Ordinals is a meta protocol on Bitcoin, and by default, a meta protocol has some centralized forces that don't exist at the Bitcoin base layer. And ICP has ways to decentralize those centralized forces. And so I think there's a lot of synergies here with making Bitcoin better with ICP. And it's really interesting because I think some of my tweets probably have more cross-chain engagement than anywhere else, because I'm tweeting things that ICP people care about, because we want to leverage ICP for what it's good at, and we want to grow ICP. But at the same time, I have a lot of Bitcoin followers, like a couple thousand people from the Ordinals and Bitcoin ecosystem, and they want Bitcoin to grow. And if we can leverage ICP to make things on Bitcoin more decentralized, or make these meta protocols more decentralized, or if we can add kind of a layer 2 or a side chain to Bitcoin for more programmability, it's been really interesting to see the mutual celebrations for Bioniq. Bioniq really is a win for Bitcoin as well as a win for ICP, and I've seen that in the Twitter Spaces, or just generally on Twitter.
Great. And I also noticed you mentioned the Stacks chain, who's kind of claimed for a while to be like the go-to layer 2 for Bitcoin, and that they're also getting into Ordinals. I'm curious, like within the context of Ordinals, how does Stacks efforts compare to ICP when ICP is acting as a L2 for Bitcoin?
Yep, Stacks is great. I have met tons of people from the Stacks ecosystem, and I really, really like Stacks people. All the Stacks people I've met, they're just really great people. Building Stacks as an ecosystem is actually fairly similar to ICP in terms of they're trying to grow. They're trying to grow as a smart contract layer for Bitcoin. And lately, I've had a couple really, really deep talks with people on the Stack side at the technical level, talking about how SBTC is going to work. SBTC is going to be the wrapped Bitcoin on Stacks, and how SBTC compares to CKBTC. And in some ways, SBTC is better, and in some ways, CKBTC is better. And it's really interesting to talk about the trade-offs there. And then beyond that, we've been chatting a lot about how SBTC on Stacks really has to be built at the protocol level. The protocol level, because you have, so on Stacks, you have a programming language called Clarity, and Clarity isn't a Turing complete language, meaning it's not as it's more limited in functionality, but it's more limited on purpose because it's decidable, so it will complete, and so it's more secure, etc. And so you have to build things like SBTC or like an Ordinals wrapper at the protocol layer, whereas on ICP you have really great primitives like HTTP outcalls or threshold ECDSA or other primitives like that make it so we can build our CKBTC and wrapped ordinals at the application layer, not at the protocol layer. And so on ICP, we're able to move a lot faster building these solutions because we're all at the application layer, whereas on Stacks, you have to build it at the protocol layer, which is so much harder. And so CKBTC is already out. SBTC is coming later this year. If they wanted to add ordinals to SBTC, it's going to take some more time beyond the end of year timeline for SBTC. And so we already have a wrapped ordinal solution on ICP. You know, it's just a single smart contract, maybe like 1,000 lines of code in a canister. And so, you know, you could build that in a month instead of, if it was at the protocol layer, I mean, it might take 6 months or 9 months or a year. And so there are some advantages building on ICP because of the way that ICP was designed with really nice base primitives to use.
Awesome. Great. And yeah, I didn't know that about Clarity. It sounds like you've really taken some time to get some good insights in there. And you know, I was just expecting you to say Stacks is awful, ICP is way better, but it sounds like you dug in, and that's great.
Yeah, no, Stacks is great. There's a lot of good about Stacks.
Okay, that's right.
So it's if you really dig in, it's all about trade-offs.
Yeah.
Because ICP has made some interesting trade-offs that give it the scale and the programmability that it has, and those trade-offs result in a certain form of solutions. And Stacks has made other trade-offs which give it kind of the flavor that it has with like proof of transfer and other things. And so it's less like good guy, bad guy, and more like we're all trying to achieve similar things, but we're moving in different directions and we've made different trade-offs to try to get there. And so there are tons of things in the Bitcoin ecosystem like this. There are rollups, there are like sovereign rollups, there are meta protocols, there are side chains, there are layer twos, and it's all about trade-offs. Lots of people building really great solutions, making different trade-offs to try to get to their end goal.
Yeah. Well, you're gonna win at the end of the day. And regarding that, you know, like have you talked about partnerships? You kind of did a call to action a bit for ICP projects. Are there any like partnerships for Bioniq that you've been pursuing that are kind of external to the ICP ecosystem, like perhaps with, I don't know, artists or collections from other chains?
Yeah, I mean, we're basically all in on ordinals. And so there are wallets in the Bitcoin ecosystem, ordinal wallets. There are other marketplaces, there are other tech that are doing things with ordinals. You know, I'm really good friends with tons of people in the ordinals ecosystem, and we have lots of people that we want to bring into Bioniq and help us make Bioniq great, whether they're creators or whether they're users or whether whether they're builders. I think there are tons of synergies here because, you know, we're building Bioniq to make Bitcoin better. So
awesome. Yeah. And yeah, I would be really excited to see a wallet like external to the ecosystem that kind of held through wrapped ordinals. I think that'd be a really just big for the visibility of ICP as a whole. And you know, speaking of which, when am I going to be able to remint my herd and stash of chronics I've been holding on to for a couple of years into a new life on the ordinals and Bitcoin blockchain?
Yeah, something like that is really interesting. You know, we're definitely 100% focused on Bioniq right now. Want to get it out, want to get the marketplace out, and want to make sure it's secure. We're essentially building token wrappers plus Bitcoin and ICP wallet built into Bioniq plus marketplace functionality. Plus, you know, we have some smart contract wallet stuff in the background too. So it's a lot to build, and we want to make sure it's secure and the user experience is fantastic and we're not compromising. And so definitely interesting to start to dive in. You know, my heart will never leave the Chronix ecosystem. And so, you know, really hope to be able to do something, but no news, no updates yet.
Okay, they'll stay in hibernation a bit longer. That's fine. They'll keep. So as we in the last few minutes here, I just wanted to shoot out some quick reminders that if you want to talk about this talk and kind of go through things a bit more, you can join our ICP groups. We've got some WhatsApp groups, and you can use this this QR code to get more information on that. And then next week we're going to be having Laura Cole on here with us. She's probably the only lawyer this side of the planet who knows anything about the SNS and all these juicy topics that are very ICP specific. We had a great fireside chat with her at the conference, and so she's going to be our guest there. We'll watch some of the content coming out of her talk, and you get to ask a lawyer questions that you've had about the SNS and ICP and all these unique types of things. So that's coming up next Thursday at 5 p.m.
And you get to ask her for free if you join the live stream and post here.
Yeah,
exactly. An important one with lawyers.
Definitely. And as far as, I'm just going to pick, I think here we've got the first question here from Jeremy. Is anybody working on Bitcoin DeFi yet? Jeremy, send me a DM on Twitter, and I'll make sure you get your 5 ICP. My DMs are open, and thanks for your comment. And my Twitter handle's right here, Isaac Valdez 55. I didn't know that on Twitter I'd be getting into this ecosystem, and this is I just doxed myself from the very beginning, I guess, but I'm okay with that.
Why is it 55, by the way, Isaac? Because I know you're not 55 years old, and you were also not born in 1955.
Yeah, 55 was the jersey number of my dad when he played football, and that was also my jersey number when I played football. And so it's just a number that I add to the end of things whenever it's a non-unique name and username. But yeah, thanks for everybody joining. We really appreciate you, those joining live and those who will be watching this after. The talk will also, for those watching, we're going to be having just the talk on its own as a YouTube video upload as well, in addition to having this live stream recording available afterwards. Yeah, anything y'all want to say as we sign off here?
Thank you, Bob. Always great chatting with you. Always very insightful. Good luck with Bioniq. Keep us updated, and excited about buying my first Bitcoin Ordinal once it's live.
Yeah, thanks. Happy to be here.
All right, IC people. Thanks for joining. Fight the FUD and stay bullish.
We'll talk soon.